Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, today we're going to take a look at Design Town from Homo Sapiens Lab. Now, this is a city building game by way of deck building and a little bit of push your luck. And as you can see, it's a small game. It's rather simple. You just have a deck of cards that you start off with, and you play cards directly from the top of that deck in an effort to buy more and better cards to put into your deck. And all these different cards represent parts of a city. You have residential areas, apartments, you've got factories and central parks and convenience stores and shopping malls. The caveat or the gimmick of the game is that every card is double-sided. And when you have one card and you have it in your discard pile, you might have the opportunity to upgrade it into a better version of that card. You're making your city better. But like I said, there's some push your luck elements there as well. So let's go ahead and take a brief look at how the game is played, because it's much easier to just show you some of these neat little twists. And then we're going to come back and I'll let you know what I think. Okay, this is the initial setup for Design Town. This is a deck building game, so you're always going to have cards that are available for purchase, and in this game those cards are convenience store, hospital, factory, and central park. And every player is going to have a starting deck like any other deck builder, which is going to consist of one of each of these cards plus also 4 residential areas and an apartment. Now, this is where I talk about the central conceit of this game, and that is that all of these cards are double-sided, which means 2 things. One is that you must always maintain the orientation of the cards. There is a way in this game to upgrade cards, which lets you permanently flip them over to their other side, but you can't just do that willy-nilly. You have to make sure that you're always maintaining them in the proper orientation. The other thing is that when you shuffle the cards, you really just have to shuffle them under the table, just to keep everyone on the up and up. Shuffle them under the table and then put them back onto the table so that whatever's on top is on top and you don't have any kind of control over that. Now, the goal of Design Town is to gain 8 victory points. Victory points are little ribbons that you can gain during the course of the game. As soon as you can accrue 8 of those, in addition to the other resources you have during the turn, then you win the game automatically, or if you gain more than that. But you have to have at least 8 ribbons, or produce at least 8 ribbons on your turn. Now, the central gameplay and what you do turn by turn in Design Town is actually very simple. You're going to have your deck in front of you. You'll start off with your starting deck, and then you're just going to play cards off the top. You play cards one by one, doing their abilities and getting the resources that they're providing you at the bottom of the card until you either must stop or you wish to stop. And I'm going to get back to that in a minute, because there's this very cool push your luck element to this game. And after you get done playing your cards, assuming that you did that willingly, you willingly stopped playing your cards, then you are able to go to your purchasing phase. And this is where you have one purchase, but you have 3 different options by which to do that. You can either buy a card from the stock, assuming you have accrued enough money to afford it. You can just buy a card from one of the central decks and then put it into your discard pile. Alternatively, remember, you can only do one of these things on your turn. You can choose to upgrade a card that you already have in your discard pile. The upgrade cost is in the bottom corner of the card, and if you can pay that amount, you can flip the card permanently over to its other side. The last thing you can do with your purchase is instead immediately buy and upgrade a card, meaning that, let's say for the hospital here, I've managed to get at least 8 gold. I'm going to go ahead and buy the hospital and then immediately pay another 4 and flip it right over to its church side in my stock. Now, let's get back to what I meant by pushing your luck, and that's because each of these cards has a different special ability, and not all of them are going to be good for you. So let's go ahead and break that down card by card. First, you have residential areas. You start off with 4 of these in your deck. Now, when you play one, you get $1, which is great, but you also get unhappy faces. Now, unhappy faces, and I'm sorry, I don't know the proper term for them, if amongst the cards that you played for a turn, you ever get 3 of these, you're sunk. Your turn immediately ends. You do not get a purchase phase. You've wasted all the other resources you've gained for the turn, and your turn goes to the next player. So you do not want to get those unhappy faces, but the problem with the residential areas, aside from that, is that whenever it's on top of your stack, you must play it. So this is where the main push your luck aspect comes in for the game. You may decide, okay, there's a factory on top of my deck, which is great. I can get $2. but I've already got 2 unhappy faces. And if I play that factory, there might be a residential area underneath it, which means I must immediately play it, which means I'm done for this turn. Now, the good news is you can upgrade this by paying 1 and turn it into an apartment. Now, an apartment still kind of sucks because it only gets you $1 and still gets you an unhappy face. But you can upgrade the apartment again. This is actually, I think, the only card that you can upgrade again. And this makes it so that you can flip the card and place it into another player's discard pile. So you turn it back into a residential area and put it into another player's discard pile, and now it's their problem. The other cards that you start off with, you have well, let's just go with the order here. You have the convenience store. The convenience store gets you $1, and it actually has an alternate win condition to the game, which is that if you play 18 or more cards this turn, you win. Now, it's very hard to do, but I have seen it happen. Also, you can go ahead and upgrade this to turn it into a shopping mall. Now, a shopping mall gets you $2 and gets you a victory point. Remember, you need to accrue 8 of those in one turn in order to win. And its ability says that if the deck is not empty, you must play an additional card, which, remember, can be quite dangerous, but it can also be kind of good. Actually, there's no circumstance where that's good, because you always want the option of playing a card, not being forced to. But you can always choose to recycle this card, which means when you recycle a card, you flip it back over to its original side in order to gain an extra $1 right then and there. Then you have the hospital. The hospital gives you an unhappy face and $1, which sucks. But you also gain $1 equal to the number of unhappy faces that you have gained, which means if you can get a total of 2 of them potentially, unless you because then if you gain 3, you'd lose, unless you upgrade this to a church. And the good thing about the church is that every time you play a church, it doesn't get you any other resource, but you are able to increase your limit of unhappy faces that turn. So church and hospital can work quite well together to get you a lot of money. Then you have the factory, and by the way, I have no idea why a hospital upgrades to a church. It doesn't make any kind of thematic sense, but in any case, the factory gets you $2, and if the deck is not empty, you place the bottom card from the deck into your discard pile. You can upgrade this for 6 money, and if you do, it becomes a power plant, which unfortunately gets you an unhappy face and only $1, but it does give you 2 victory points, and you can choose to recycle the card, return it to the top of your deck, and you place an apartment from its normal ability is that you place an apartment from your discard pile into another player's discard pile without having to pay that upgrade cost to do so first. Then you have the Central Park, the last card we're going to take a look at. The Central Park, it only gives you 2 ribbons when you first play it, but it also, you can additionally buy once while building, not the buy-in upgrade. And you can upgrade it into a station. If you upgrade it into a station, it gets you 3 ribbons, and you can recycle it for another ribbon. And its normal ability is that you can additionally upgrade while building. Your upgrade costs get reduced by 1 as well. So that is the game of Design Town. You are starting off with your starting deck. You're buying more cards to put into the deck. You're hopefully upgrading them into better cards, hoping to push your luck and get as much money and as many ribbons as possible in order to win the game without busting because of those unhappy faces. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. I really like the way that Design Town looks. I actually didn't make an effort to show you this much in the video, and I do apologize, but the way that the card artwork is laid out is that you can actually lay all the cards next to each other if you wanted to, and it would look like it's forming into a linear city. There's no reason you would do that during the course of the game, but still, I just think the cards look great. The graphic design is very simplistic, it's very easy to understand, and the game itself is very easy to understand too. The rulebook, there's not much to it because the game is simple, but I think that's to its benefit. As far as the theme goes, I actually think there's more thematic elements here than you would normally suspect. I mean, all the cards do stuff that's somewhat intuitive to what you would expect. You don't want too many residential areas because those are people that you have to deal with, and that's why you get those unhappy faces that are bogging you down. But if you can upgrade into apartments and push those responsibilities as a landlord off to someone else, then that's going to work out much better for you. So there's some things don't make total sense. Why does a hospital turn into a church? But maybe in some cultures it does make a ton of sense. But other things just seem neat and intuitive, so I like that. And again, this is not a very complex game, so I would actually like to see they do on the box it says Design Town Basic. I'd love to see Design Town Deluxe, where there's like this huge sprawling game that's kind of like a mix of the complexity of suburbia together with this deck building element. That might be really, really cool. But moving on to that gameplay, again, this is one of those games that relies on a bit of a gimmick, and everything's a gimmick until a lot of other games start to use it. I don't know if that's ever going to be the case. And by the way, I will mention that this game was recently announced as going to be picked up for North American release, because it's kind of hard to find right now. I think it's originally from overseas. But Tasty Minstrel Games is bringing it over here and calling it Flip City, which is a stupid name. Not that Design Town is that much better, but okay. But you will see, I think, more mechanisms like this. I did a preview for a deck building game that had double-sided cards as well. But that gimmick is very, very cool, and it works better than you would think. The first time everyone plays, they're like, how am I going to remember to keep cards the same way? And shuffling is always an issue at the first. But it's very easy as you go along. And the whole idea of having these cards and then being able to upgrade them over to their other side works really well. They have to be in your discard pile. You can do the buy and upgrade at the same time, and then you can choose to recycle them, which is one of the most difficult decisions you can make in the game, because when do you do that? It's like, man, if I recycle this now, it's like I went through all this trouble to upgrade it on a previous turn, using money, using an action. Now I'm kind of wasting it, but is it a waste? Those are the kind of decisions you can make in the game. So even though it's not very complex, there are strategic choices that you have to make, and I do appreciate that. And the push your luck element, I'll say the push your luck element is a double-edged sword for this game, in that it's one of the most interesting facets of it. The idea of the residential areas especially, and how those can just totally screw you over, but also how you can use the hospital and the church to mitigate that and also get some combo work going as well, getting more money. That's a great part of it. And it's nice that it sort of turns traditional deck building on its ear, because you're not drawing a hand and playing what you want. It's like, all right, how many cards can I get away with playing? I really enjoyed that, pressure and stress, even though not everyone in my group did. And the reason for that, and even I kind of got irked by this at times in the first couple of games that I played, is because you can totally mess up your entire turn just because of cards like the residential area. And you're like, okay, well, yeah, that's a push your luck thing. You're taking your risks. But sometimes you have to take a risk, or else you're just not going to get anywhere. Like 2 currency is really not going to do much for you. You're even 3 or 4. You need to take risks in order to make headway in the game. And when you take that risk and it doesn't work out for you, you've lost a turn, whereas the next player might get lucky and just have a fantastic turn. So now you're behind. It's clear that you're behind as well. Unlike in other deck building games where it can kind of be like, well, maybe he's got more points in this deck, I don't know. This one, it's very clear that you see other players doing great things and you just completely lost your turn. So as cool as that push your luck thing can be, it can also be rather frustrating. The other issue that I have with the game is simply that there's not enough cards. It is a small game. It's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be light and be able to play fast, and that's most definitely the reason. But still, after a few plays, I was like, there's got to be more cards. There's got to be more that I can do. I want to see more cards. There's so much potential in the game, and I want it now. And that's why I'm saying maybe Design Town Deluxe will be phenomenal. Now, I know that there is an expansion that was just released, I think, at the Tokyo Game Market, and hopefully I'll be able to get that and review it for you soon. But that would definitely take care of the problem. I just wish that out of the base game there would have been more cards. Even so, I know that those are criticisms, but the game is still solid. It's incredibly interesting. It's a gimmick that works very well, and something that I'd love to see become not a gimmick anymore, to see be used in more and more games, because I love deck building, and I love it when deck builders can take that central mechanism and turn it on its ear and do something new and refreshing with it. And that's definitely what I feel about Design Town. I love the idea of the upgrades. I love building your city with this deck building and pushing your luck in order to make your city bigger and better, and getting those sweet, juicy victory point ribbons. It's so great when you get those, because it's so hard to get them at times. But that's Design Town. Definitely check this out if you can get a hold of it, or wait for the Tasty Minstrel version, because I think it's a great game.
Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.